Hello, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Lahaina Community Webinar. My name is Stephanie Nakasone Ramsey. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Office of Recovery. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining tonight, those who are in the webinar and those who are watching on Akaku. Welcome. Firstly, wanted to go over just a few housekeeping sort of things for those who are new here. You will see, it should be at the bottom of your screen, there'll be a Q&A box. If not, you have to click more, and you'll be able to ask questions through the Q&A box. Panelists will have the ability to either answer via typing in the Q&A box to your questions, or during the Q&A session at the end of the presentations, I'll be reading aloud some of those questions and having our panelists answer. And the chat, we hope we got it fixed. Or our last webinar, the panelists could not send out chats with information. So I think we got that fixed. I hope it did. If not, we'll try to work around that this time. So next slide, please. All right, so just a few quick announcements, a few events that are coming up, some that are really fun, like the Hui Mo'olelo Lahaina Film Festival by Maui Public Art Court. They are doing a couple of days on Saturday, Sunday at the Pro Arts Playhouse in Kihei. It will be premiering a collection of animated films, 10 animated films, featuring, 10 it's films that is shorts drawn from 10 Lahaina Talk Stories recordings as part of their Hui Mo'olelo project. So Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Admission is free. Seating is first come, first seated. So if you want more information on this, you can go to mauipublicart.org/events. Next slide, please. And the always popular Bingo Blast is back at the Lahaina Civic Center Social Hall. So for Kumfuna, ages 55 and better are invited to join the Kanoa Clubhouse for some bingo. Really fun prizes. Everyone's a winner. It's really fun. So 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. on February 25th. So I believe that's next week, Tuesday. You can register by calling 808-270-7308 and selecting option 3. Next slide, please. And MIMO will be hosting a hazard mitigation public meeting. It's an in-person meeting on February 27th, so next week, Thursday. This is over at the Velma McWayne Santos Community Center in Wailuku. Again, 5 to 6, sorry. And they will be discussing the 2025 Hazard Mitigation Plan, which is the county, as it says right there, the county strategy to reduce the cost of natural disasters on the people, infrastructure, economy, and environment. You can also join the live stream at that QR code there, the Facebook live stream on the QR code there. Next slide, please. And this was recently announced yesterday, the Fair Market Rent Survey. The county's Department of Housing is working with Ward Research to conduct this survey throughout Maui County. The purpose is to collect accurate and up-to-date information about current rental housing costs across Maui, and the survey results may be used by HUD to update information as it uses it to support the county's federal housing programs. And so the department encourages residents who have been invited, so you should have received an email. Oh, sorry, can you go back really quickly? Go back a slide. But yeah, so the department encourages basic residents who have received this survey in the mail to complete that either on paper or online. And you can contact Ward Research if you have any questions, 808-522-5123, or at that email, wrstaff@wardresearch.com. Next slide. And this is from Hiko. Again, just reminding you how you can request electrical service be restored to your property. You've seen this probably a few times, but this is a little bit more information. I know it's a little small, but we'll be able to share these slides once we post the meeting tomorrow on Maui Recovers. Excuse me. So you have a few QR codes there that will take you to the website, the web page where you can request service, and then also a QR code to schedule an in-person meeting, appointment with HICO at the Office of, formerly known as the Office of Recovery West Maui. It's the office of the Lahaina Gateway. It's now the Lahaina Resource Center. But same location, near Ace Hardware, near Sherman-Williams. It's right there. So there's a few times where you can either drop in or you can set up an appointment. If you go to their website, if you look at the bottom of that slide, hawaiianelectric.com/West Maui, there's a link there that will take you to a page that will give you these instructions kind of in different languages. So that's kind of what the right side there is showing you. There's PDFs available in different languages. Next slide, please. And that brings us to our agenda tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have an update from the State Office of Recovery and Resiliency on the Hawaii Interim Housing Program. We also have Mima here to discuss security checkpoints, updates there. Office of Recovery will be going over SMA exemptions and current legislation regarding that, and as well as a joint presentation regarding the transfer of the debris from the temporary debris site over Olowalu to the permanent site in Central Maui. And as always, we'll close with Q&A. Next slide. And here's the very long list of panelists we always have. We want to thank all our panelists for being here to be available for questions. I'll just go over quickly all the different departments and agencies that are here. From the county, we have Department of Management, we have Office of Recovery, Environmental Management, Public Works, Planning, Water Supply, MEMA, and then we have our contractor 4-Leaf for permitting questions. Also, we have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as I said earlier, Office of Recovery and Resiliency, State Department of Health, Hawaiian Electric, as well as the EPA. Next slide. And quickly coming up, we have the next in-person meeting, as always, the first Wednesday of the month, unless there's a holiday or something. So the next in-person meeting will be on Wednesday, March 5th at 5:30 at Lahaina Intermediate School Cafeteria. The next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, March 19th at 5:30. And then as far as the coming up in March, we will have the CDBG DR Action Plan public meetings. We had planned to announce the exact dates, times, locations, and all those details tonight. However, our office, our program, CDBG DR program office is currently working currently still working on the action plan, and they're actually awaiting some guidance from HUD. So we're holding off on announcing those exact dates right now, but again, they're still planned for March, so stay tuned for an announcement soon. Next slide. Oh, and with that, can we go? My bad, that was my fault. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Mayor Richard Bisson with some opening remarks.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'll keep this brief. I'll just say that in response to the growing concerns that have come around thefts going on in neighborhoods that are in the rebuilding phases, the county will be putting up cameras. Right now, we're planning on putting up 5 of them starting tomorrow. We do have tentative locations that is subject to change, but we do have 5 locations we're identifying right now, and our vendor is going to assist us starting to put up cameras tomorrow. We hope to have them all up and running at the very latest by Monday, by next week Monday.
Mayor, excuse me, sorry, you're a little hard to hear. Could you I don't know if you can speak into the little closer. Okay. Sorry, my bad.
Try to speak louder. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, and I'm sorry for those of you who now think I'm shouting at you, we are going to be putting up cameras in the neighborhoods where we are rebuilding homes, and that's going to start tomorrow, and we hope to have up at least 5 cameras by Monday. And these will be able to capture night vision as well as obviously during the day as well. We're also working closely with HICO, and I know they can talk about this more when they present on having streetlights in the Wahikuli area, and I know they're working in the Lahaina area right now. We also are going to be sharing with you tonight from our teams what's ahead about the transporting of debris from the temporary site at Olowalu to the permanent site at the Central Maui, in Central Maui. We're encouraging everyone to stay informed through our meetings because we'll be transporting over 400,000 tons of debris. I wanted to thank the Olowalu community who met with us this past Saturday to get information about what's happening in their community. We also shared last weekend that the construction has already begun at the Central Maui area, and it should be done within 3 months. And once that's done, USACE will start to transport the debris from temporary to our permanent site. You'll get more details later from USACE or any questions you might have. And finally, I know there's great news that's going to be shared by Lieutenant Colonel Kendall to come forward on that regarding, again, the topic of debris. So I'll leave that to him. I do want to thank all our partners, not just from the federal government, but from the state government, our private partners that are also on this call for updating our community, keeping you informed. So thank you for all the work that's being done. And we will get back to you on the CDBG DR public community meetings and other information. Obviously, because of what's happening right now at our nation's capital, some things we need to get finalized. So thank you again, Stephanie. I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Mayor. And because as Mayor Bisson was alluding to, there's some really good news that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would like to share. So if I can get, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Kendall on. Thank you. And go ahead.
Stephanie, thank you for the introduction. And mahalo, Mayor Bisson, for providing me the privilege and the opportunity to make the announcement today that we are 148 of 148 commercial properties complete with debris removal, bringing us to the grand total of 1,538 residential and commercial debris properties complete in Lahaina. So ahead of schedule, ahead of the 26th February schedule, we'll continue with the remaining 2 properties before they're handed over to the county to execute the erosion control and soil sampling. But I wanted to extend a big thank you and mahalo to our state, our federal partners, and county and contractors who made this mission happen over the course of the last 18 months. Absolutely privileged tonight to be able to announce this in this forum, and thank you to all of our partners who made this happen. So Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel. Can I move it to the next slide, please? Next we'll be having Luke Myers from the Hawaii State Office of Recovery and Resiliency.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Kind of hard to go after that great message from the Corps. But my name is Luke Myers, and I'm the branch chief at the Hawaii Office of Recovery and Resiliency, and going to spend a little time and provide you an update of where with our disaster housing programs and just kind of a refresher of some of the program requirements. Next slide. Go to the next slide, man. So just a refresher of what the Hawaii Interim Housing Program is kind of based on. This is a state-sponsored interim housing program, obviously with the scale of the impacted properties and survivors. We are specifically focused on those who were displaced by the 2023 fires. This program is administered in partnership with many different hands, but by the Office of Recovery and Resiliency. It is for those who do not have assistance through other means. So whether that may be insurance or federal assistance. The units at this time are at no cost to those survivors through August of 2025. As we get to the right of August of 2025, there will be some costs associated with those units. And one thing I would like to stress tonight, just trying to communicate about this program, just because you get into HIP, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you a housing unit. We've had a very overwhelming demand from the survivors out there, and it is a long process. Next slide. So the current snapshot of where we are, we continue to work collaboratively with Human Services and the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation. They've been doing a lot of the work in the field at the sites out in Lahaina and in Kihei, which are our two primary areas. The exciting news is that we have filled 484 units, matching those with survivors at the various properties. We have this information as of last week, so it is a bit dated and information does change. But we have about 131 units filled at the Hale property in Kihei, the Hagai property. And this is more for transitional, those that may not be able to get to Lahaina, but have kind of an intermediate step. We have the Kaleo property. We had 160 units. DHS and Homemade have been doing a great job out there. We still have about 181 units occupied in the state rental assistance program with state DHS. So this is a very kind of shorter term type of unit, the short-term vacation rentals that we're able to leverage for a short interim. And then we have about 12 units that are part of gap funding. So those that may not be able to meet the rent kind of threshold, there is some gap funding. So the 484 is a backdrop against of about 891 units. So we have filled about 54 of our state inventory so far. So that is very exciting. I think the challenging message, and we've been communicating this to the survivors that have entered into the HIP program. We've had over 2,000 households apply to the state disaster interim housing, and we have about 842 that have completed applications. So we continue to place those 842 with the remaining units that we have. One area that we have also explored recently here in the last 90 days, investigating putting residential dwelling units on private property. These would be some of the units that we already have in inventory with state DHS. I really want to stress that this program is for those that are in the HIP program, and then they are primary property owners. Through outreach, we've identified a little over 100 households who may be interested. At this time, this is more of a feasibility and assessment phase, and we'll be making some decisions in the coming weeks if we're going to move forward. Next slide. So just some more particulars about who's eligible. These are primary residents in Maui prior to the disaster, and one of the following: you're either displaced by the fires or you face some kind of disaster-related income loss. Some clarifications, because this has come up a lot with the varying survivors. You will be asked to provide some type of identification, but it does not have to indicate citizen statusship. And we are also looking for your pre-disaster residency location. You may be asked to provide, as you move further into the process, proof of income or loss of ability to pay rent or mortgage, and any type of documentation with regards to other types of assistance you may have received, whether that's from FEMA, the SBA, or insurance. Next slide. So from a programmatic overview, we started this process back in July when the governor kicked it off. We got a lot of engagement from many of the survivors out there. We went through a process in the middle of December, in the middle of January, closing off various entry points into the HIP application portal. So officially, the program closed on the middle of January. After looking at the amount of survivors that were out there still looking for interim housing, we did open a late application window. So that late application window runs into the middle of March. Depending on the demand that we see during this period, we may extend it. The big thing I want to communicate to those that may be still looking for an interim housing option, that the process does go through March the 17th, but there's no online application portal. We would ask you to contact the housing program contact center at 808-727-1550. Then obviously, if you have unmet needs in the meantime with regards to housing, you can always reach out to the Disaster Case Management Program Manager. Next slide. When a survivor goes through the HIP process, I kind of alluded to this earlier, we have those that are eligible and then for placement. So it does bring up different forms of documentation. And what we have seen with survivors, understanding that you all have been through a lot, you get an agency ask for one set of documentation and then another set. But for eligibility into the program, again, proof of identification, proof of residency, proof of some kind of disaster impact if there was an economic loss, other assistance that may have been received, and then the status of your current housing situation. So once you're actually in HIP for placement, we look at the household composition, we look at accessible needs, are there any pet needs? There is a background check for those that are 18 and older in the family, and then any other special considerations that come up case by case. So we have the initial eligibility, and then once you get in, then there is specific placement information. We do have an FAQ that's available on the website that can be shared. Next slide. Again, I just want to, as we move a year and a half past this incident, with the tremendous amount of unmet needs that are still out there, there's a great resource, sponsored by the federal government, the Disaster Case Management Program, run by state DHS and a number of local partners. So I would really challenge you all, if you are seeing unmet needs, whether those are disaster housing or just other needs that you may be encountering, to really reach out to the DCM team and communicate those. Next slide. And that's just my contact information. If you have any questions, you can email me. I know when we presented back in the fall, there were a lot of one-on-one specific. So you're more than willing to reach out to me directly or our Deputy Branch Chief, David Lopez, and I'll be available for questions at the end. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke. And next we'll have Kono Davis from MEMA.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep, can hear you loud and clear, Kono.
I cannot turn off my video for some reason.
There we go. Yep.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Kono Davis. I am the Operation Coordination Section Chief here at Maui Emergency Management Agency. And I'll be talking about a few things tonight, including security contract, the phase zone reduction process and current status, as well as the next steps moving forward. I hope everybody's having a good evening tonight, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's see. The current security contract with Aegean Security is set to expire at the end of this month, February 28th at 6 p.m. I just want to you can keep the first, yeah. I just want to personally thank not only Aegean Security, but the previous security company, Gold Shield, as well as the National Guard, Maui Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and all the other law enforcement entities that helped us to keep the areas secure and safe for our residents. Even if it wasn't the most popular thing at the time, it was essential. It allowed the USAs to be able to perform their job efficiently, which allowed them to make the deadline or beat the deadline that was projected. So thank you, everybody who had a hand in that. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So I'm not sure if anybody followed along, but we had 8 zone reductions from when we had the entire Lahaina secure. It started off, the first zone was open in June of 2024, June 12th of 2024. That was Komomai Street. The second one was Kahoma Village Loop a week later, June 19th. And then the big one was the phase 3, which was the opening of Honoapi'ilani Highway. It was supposed to coincide with Lahaina Luna Road, but with some information that led to the smokestack being uncertain if it was stable or not, afforded us to keep Lahaina Luna Road closed at that time. Following that was the Wahikuli and Mala Camp area, and then south of Shaw Street down to Puamana in September. And then the smokestack was deemed safe, and we opened up Mauka of Honoapi'ilani Highway off of Lahaina Luna Road. The last area or areas, we consider it or call it the commercial bubble. And the original commercial bubble was between Shaw and Kinui Streets, Makaya of Honoapi'ilani Highway. This was primarily the commercial area where there was few residents, but more predominantly commercial properties. Since then, we've reduced the commercial bubble down to a smaller size bubble, which on this slide is the green section. The original was the yellow, and currently is the green section. That section is from Shaw Street to Papalaua, Makai of Luakini Street. That's the history of the zone reduction that was planned out based on the progress that USACE and all the other entities were making with the debris removal, the hazardous debris removal, as well as soil testing. Next slide. So next steps, with the USACE being ahead of the game and all the infield work in the commercial zone complete, the security contract, as I stated earlier, is going to be terminated February 28th at 6 p.m. So what that means is we will still continue to keep the barricades in place because the commercial bubble, the existing commercial bubble, still has a lot of industrial construction and deconstruction happening in that area. So we're going to treat it like a CIP project to just cordon it off, and hopefully we'll get compliance with signage, which we already have in place. I just want to remind everyone to be vigilant that this area is still not safe to be walking through and going to the beach or visiting the banyan tree. I know that everybody wants to, get down there and see it, both visitors and residents alike, but it's for everyone's safety that we remain vigilant with the current barricades and signage. With that said, we're going to send out a press release soon outlining the topics that was covered tonight, as well as sending the message to visitors as well as residents to obey the posted signs and restricted area. Also to remind those that are parking on private properties in the commercial area, private parking lots, walking across private properties into the burn zone, that is considered trespassing. Although there's no buildings on it, it's still property of an owner that is not allowing egress onto their properties. So please be respectful of the properties that may look like open spaces, but they are still people's private properties. If you are an owner of a property and you see anyone that is parked or walking across your property, you're encouraged to contact the Maui Police Department on their non-emergency line at 808-244-6400. Mahalo to you all. That's all I have to report out tonight, and I'll be hanging around for more questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kono. Yeah, and then now we'll move on to the Office of Recovery Department of Management, John Smith and Aaron Wade to give their presentation.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? See me?
Yep, you're good, John.
Okay. Sorry. Can't see myself, but that's okay. This presentation, Aaron and I gave. Aaron, are you online?
I'm here.
Okay, we gave this presentation a couple weeks ago and at the last in-person community meeting, but we just thought it would be a good idea to run back through it for those that may have missed that meeting. So I'll start it and we'll kind of tag team this presentation, but this is on the heels of the SMA exemptions from the latest EP from the governor. But the main things are that properties that are Malka or the landward side of Front Street and that are outside of that erosion hazard line will no longer need to apply for SMA permits. So this applies to like for like. And we do have, I think Anna's on here from planning if we have technical questions that I won't be able to answer. So you guys can put them in the chat or we can do it in the Q&A section. But it allows the homeowners and commercial property owners to rebuild more quickly. It impacts 100 commercials and 533 residentials. And a lot of people want to know, does that still mean I have to go through other permits? And the answer is yes. So the historic stuff, the flood stuff, building permits, those are all in place. And if you did happen to apply for an SMA, I think there were a few, those permit fees will be refunded. Next slide. And this is the map that outlines that. I think this is the most accurate version of that map that we have, and it's available a number of places, but I know it's on My Recovers, and then there's other, I believe planning department can point you to the links for this where you could zoom in to see if your exact property is impacted. Next slide. I'll do this one and then the next one, and then I'll turn it over to you, Aaron. We did not practice this, so sorry, folks. So I was just in the burn zone today and was reminded again of how, when you see it in person, how the utilities actually work in Lahaina. So everything goes from Malka to Mackay. That's the water and the sewer, streets, everything ends up on Front Street. And if you go to the next slide, I don't know that we really got into this in the in-person meeting. Just go one more. If you were able to take a cross section, just slice Front Street, this is pretty much what it looks like underneath. So the county has the responsibility to maintain, this public infrastructure. So that has a lot to do with the decisions were made on the SMA and how that's going to work moving forward. But we can't just easily relocate these kind of utilities. That doesn't mean that we're not going to plan to in the future. But I thought this was a good picture to show what Front Street looks like underground. And I probably skipped over stuff. So Aaron, you want to jump in and fill in the blanks? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, John. So this slide, essentially, if you're not familiar with looking at a cross-section rendering, shows like what the former building frontages would have looked like all the way to the seawall. And what's shown underneath the roadway is the breadth of utility services that are under there and that have either already been repaired or are in the process of being repaired and do service all of the Lahaina community in terms of wastewater, water, and need to be maintained. So you can skip to the next slide, Jen, and we'll talk a little bit about then, once we understood that the infrastructure was readily usable and repairable and that there wasn't a quick fix to move any of that outside of the Front Street corridor, we knew we need to set some things in motion to ensure the protection of Front Street moving forward. So to do that, a couple of things had already been in motion prior to the fire. The first is the seawall and railing repair project. And you can see on the left that shows the condition the seawall was in prior to the fire and of course, the conditions did not get better. So that project is continuing to move forward and is we'll start construction shortly for those repair efforts. The other thing that's taking place is the piling removal, and shoreline stabilization will have to follow that. So the photo on the right side shows the condition before debris removal. So the surface level debris has actually now been taken care of as part of the PPDR program, but those pilings that you see going into the ground and offshore still exist. So some of that removal still does need to take place, and we can't remove all of it 100% because there would be some destabilization of the shoreline and then in turn Front Street and potentially our utility system should all that get pulled out. So in order to move forward and ensure we're able to protect that the cleanup and repair work of the seawall and railing will have to happen in phases, which is part of the reason why Kono shared with you some of this area is staying closed because there's still work happening. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one of the things that we've proactively done is we've reached out to the property owners along the Makai side of Front Street and offered them a voluntary acquisition as an option, knowing that they still are and subject to the full breadth of the SMA rules today, as well as the shoreline rules. We know that it is kind of a steep process, and the county does have really important needs to ensure that Front Street remains stable and the utilities remain serviceable. So just illustrating here in green, the darker green shows the properties that we've reached out and offered voluntary acquisitions for. We show on the left the elevated shoreline condition, and as you folks I'm sure remember that there is quite a change in elevation from the height of Front Street to where the ocean is in that location. So those properties are where also you saw the pilings. On the far right, you can see the shoreline condition is much more beach. That photo is, of course, at Kamehameha Iki Park, but the conditions along the portions on the southern side of the shoreline have much more of a accessible condition. The one shoreline property that is remaining standing in and has been short embrace is what's known as the historic Gulit building or the Furtado building. That's right there in the center, and it's at the intersection of Dickinson and Front Street. So we have offered an opportunity for that to be preserved and retained with the ability to potentially be able to stabilize shoreline conditions with the goal of preserving Front Street and infrastructure on the further Mauka. Next slide, please. And I think this is you, right, John?
Well, yeah, I think these slides, just as a reminder, these slides are going to be posted on Maui Recovers, tomorrow. So I won't go through all of this, but this slide and the next slide is just to let you folks know that it's kind of complementary to the EP work that we're operating under now, is that there is a lot of work in the Senate right now, and this is happening today. So you can go look at Senate Bill 830 SD1, and I'm not going to read this, but this is how it benefits survivors. And here's the next step. So you can go to the next slide. It really just explains in detail what those bills are about and what they mean. So it's really not part of the presentation. It's just information that we're sharing. It's outside of what the county's doing. This is in the state Senate, but these did move forward today. So I think that's all I'll do now, but that's the House bill, the complementary 732 bill. So if you guys have questions on this, you can put them in the chat and we can go through it further. But yeah, that was it. It was just an update that not only is the EP stuff going forward and it applies the way that Aaron and I just talked, but there's also this type of action will be codified through these bills should they continue to go through and pass. Is that the last slide? Okay, thank you folks, and thank you again, Kono, for and tying that together, Aaron, with the change in security. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this presentation myself. Go ahead, guys.
All right, thanks, John and Aaron. So next we have the presentation on the transfer of debris from the temporary site in Olowalu to the permanent site over in Central Maui. I wanted to bring in Mahina to introduce the presentation and talk a little bit about it before we get into all these before we get to Bob, Lieutenant Colonel, and Nancy from DOH. So if Mahina can jump on.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. And aloha, everyone. Good to see you virtually. I just wanted to make sure that we share with you this information. And I want to do a sound check first. Stephanie, is this coming out clear?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. I don't know why there's no video. Sorry.
Your video's up. It's yeah.
Okay. Anywho, so now that, we've secured the use of the Central Maui site for our permanent disposal location, and Alpha Construction has begun construction at that Central Maui site, you're going to hear, you've heard tonight actually from Army Corps of Engineers that they've completed a very critical stage of finishing up the debris clearing, actually ahead of schedule. So it's pretty exciting news. It allows us to continue with construction over at the permanent site, but it also means that we're headed towards the site to be ready in June of this year. This is important that we start to tell everyone what to expect. So this is the beginning of that. This past weekend, we held an open house in Lahaina. We also met with the community of Olowalu so that we could share the information, since the temporary site is located right there in the Olowalu community. So tonight, you're going to hear a little bit more information from Army Corps of Engineers. You're going to hear from Environmental Management and Department of Health. It's important to know the plans going ahead. As the months come, we'll offer a lot more details, but we feel it's critical that as we approach June, that everyone gets the information from the correct sources, and as soon as possible, and sooner better than later. And it's going to be an expected challenging, what we expect to be 5 months. So when we go through the coming months and as we approach it, we encourage everyone to stay tuned, listen to our community meetings. We'll keep you updated. This will be one of the most complicated projects we're going to do, because if you travel to and from West Maui, as we transport from the temporary site at Olowalu and head towards the Central Maui permanent site, you'll more than likely encounter our transportation of debris out of Lahaina, whether you're coming or going from the west side. So all of this will be temporary, but it's important to keep this in mind, that it is going to be a temporary few months, but we have to get through it together. It's a necessary part of ensuring that we can keep the Lahaina debris safe and contained in a location that we all had planned for, which is Central Maui. So we'll do our best to keep you informed before and throughout. So please stay tuned. I'm going to turn it over to our team here, who's going to share with you what those plans are, what we know so far as we head towards June, and address any concerns about environmental and health monitoring. So why don't we proceed with, is it Bob first, or is it Lieutenant Colonel? Thank you, Steph.
Bob, I believe we are starting off with you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So I want to start the presentation by looking back and remembering how we came to the decision to make the permanent debris site at Central Maui landfill. Shortly after the Lahaina wildfire, an infrastructure task force was created, made up of subject matter experts from our local, state, and federal agencies. We vetted through a multitude of potential sites and that made the most sense in an operational and from an operational regulatory standpoint. We use scoring matrix based solely on technical evaluations to narrow possible permanent debris sites to 8 different sites. And soon thereafter, it was decreased because of public input to 7 sites when Mayor Bisson made the decision to remove Alawalu as a potential permanent debris site. We then reevaluated the 7 sites with consideration to distance to coastline, county council input, and further public input, and narrowed this down to 3 sites, at which time we put out a public survey to gauge the wider community. And the survey was open for a 2-week period. There were more than 2,700 responses. And with that public survey results implemented into the scoring matrix, the final site of Central Maui landfill was selected. Just as a reminder, in that survey, the most important issue was public and environmental health and safety. The public overwhelmingly wanted the final disposition of the Lahaina debris to be away from the public, away from schools, away from the ocean as far as possible. And the least important consideration actually became the concern for road safety and the increased traffic that would cause moving from the temporary site to the permanent site. As you can imagine, moving the estimated 400,000 tons of debris from the TDS to the PDS is an extremely complex operation with multitude of moving parts. Picture the volume as roughly 5 football fields, 5 stories high. And next I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Kendall to give you details of the TDS to PDS plan.
Oh, before Lieutenant Colonel comes on, I just wanted to reiterate, I know you can see the slide here. It looks really, the text is really small. Want to reiterate what John had mentioned previously in the other presentation, that these slides will be up on Maui Recovers, as well as a recording of this presentation tomorrow. Check back around, midday to noon. We hope midday, afternoon, we hope to get it up by then. So you'll be able to zoom in on the slides a little bit better then. But Lieutenant Colonel, if you could turn it over to you.
Mahalo again for the opportunity to talk through the temporary debris storage site to the permanent debris storage site plan. If we could go to the next slide, please. One more. All right, so I'm going to draw everyone's attention that can see to the middle of the slide. We're going to execute this task in really 3 phases: protect, move, and restore. Protect is something that we're going to do throughout this portion of the debris removal, the Lahaina debris removal mission. And what does protect mean? Protect is focused on the temporary debris site. So until the permanent site's complete, we're going to secure the debris in the same manner that we've been doing since the start of debris removal out of Lahaina into the temporary site. We'll continue to ensure the safety by air monitoring and groundwater monitoring with our monitoring wells, and then we'll maintain the leachate basin to guard against that runoff during the heavy rains. While we're moving, we'll continue to protect. And what does move look like? Be transporting the exact same way that we move the Lahaina debris from the commercial and private property debris, wrapped in the industrial plastics in the trucks. It's right now we're using the planning factor of 50 trucks per day operating at this time during daily hours, during daylight hours. It was part of that to minimize impacts to traffic in partnership with the county. We're looking to leverage former cane haul roads inside of Central Maui to move the debris to the permanent disposal site, and dust and air monitoring will continue to ensure worker in safety. And then moving to restore. These are the 3 major points that we're ready to talk about in terms of restoration. It's the infrastructure being removed, working to grade and restore the terrain as close to the original contour as we can, and the continued soil and groundwater testing. Very much still in the planning phase for move and restore. And as we get more details, we will share that in subsequent community meetings. We'll go to the next slide, please. As you see, a little bit of a deep dive into what I just discussed in terms of protect, we're securing, we're ensuring safety and maintaining what we're currently doing. Next slide, please. Move, still in the final planning phases, but this is what we're using for the planning factors and what we are taking into account as we're finalizing what the movement will be. And then one last slide, please. And restore. Again, the very macro viewpoint on what restore means in terms of the TDS site. And again, as we get more details in the timing and what this will look like, we'll share that in subsequent community meetings. So again, mahalo for the opportunity to start messaging this very important part of the process. And we look forward to the continued partnership with county, FEMA, state, and our contractors to complete this portion of the mission. Thank you.
Oh, can you move to the next slide? This talks a little bit about the transportation route. Not sure if Lieutenant Colonel. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the proposed haul route, as you can see, takes us on Honoapi'ilani up onto Kuhilani and then onto the Cane Hall roads. And I'm pointing at this slide, but realize that not everybody can see what I'm pointing out, so that's not overly effective. But then you see generally east to west along the Cane Hall roads, crossing Veterans, and then crossing Puleu, and then into the permanent debris storage site.
Awesome, thank you. You can move to the next slide, and I'll have Nancy Conrad from DOH.
Yeah.
Hey, aloha and good evening, everyone. I'm actually going to be quite brief because the news on the environmental front is quite good. We've been monitoring the area, the air, the water, the coastal water, coastal sediment, beaches, sand for some time now, and all results are showing no significant problems for health or the environment. We are going to continue to monitor along the transfer route and at the TDS and at the PDS. And as the Colonel alluded to, there's a number of environmental controls in place at the TDS that will continue. At the PDS, as you're aware, that is the Central Maui landfill site. They're going to be using similar controls that they've used throughout operation of that landfill facility, and they've had no issues there at all. So we're not expecting any problems at the permanent disposal site as well. With that, that QR code on your screen under other monitoring is our environmental monitoring webpage specific for Maui wildfires. You'll find all the data for all the monitoring we've been doing, an explanation of those data, and contact information if you want to reach out to us, myself or others, to get more information. We're happy to answer any other questions. And so with that, on to additional information for you all.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Nancy. Can you move to the next one, and we'll bring back Bob.
So the permanent debris site, we had a bit of struggle coming up with a property at Central Maui landfill, but then around November 2024, this last year, we were able to come into an agreement with Non-Inc. who was willing to sell us a piece of property. And you see in the picture, the entire yellow area is 39 acres. And we're going to build the permanent debris site in the yellow highlighted area of that, approximately 11 acres. It's under construction now. The earthwork is being done. Next slide, please. So we're building the same landfill design as all of the rest of Central Maui landfill, that's been servicing the community for 40 years. It's a subtitle D landfill. You can see in the detail there a lot of different layers. 2 layers specifically that protect from any moisture infiltration. There's an 80 mil HDPE geomembrane liner. And then below that, there's a low permeability soil, like a clay liner. And with those 2 layers, really secure, not to let any moisture get through. Next slide. So here you see actual progress from January 27 before we started, and then the right of that as of February 10th, and then overhead of the same design or same progress being made. We're currently pushing really hard. This construction is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day to make the deadline, as Mahina mentioned, of June to get the material moved. And next slide. That concludes that portion of the presentation. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Bob, and thank you, Nancy and Lieutenant Colonel, for the presentation. Now we'll move on to Q&A. I'd like to start with a few of the pre-submitted questions that were submitted through Maui Recovers. Thanks to those who were able to get those questions to us. In fact, one of the first questions I want to start off with was actually in an email that was sent over, I'm not sure exactly when, but it has to do with street lights. I'm not sure if Hiko could comment on this, or if John, I know there's been some emails going back and forth about this specific issue. This resident wanted to have an ETA on streetlights being reinstalled in the neighborhood of Wahikuli, specifically at the end of Ainakea, closest to Hawaiian Homes and Kaneau Street, or Road, sorry, my bad.
I can take that, Stephanie. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thanks for that question. We really appreciate the opportunity to update on the streetlights, and we appreciate the continued patience. Estimated time of restoration of the various streetlights in Lahaina can depending on the specific location, but we have been installing and re-energizing the Lahaina streetlights, including the Wahikuli area, most immediately in that Kaneau area, road area. And so we are working on other areas of Wahikuli that were currently prioritized and identified by the county. So we're going to be working continuously with the County of Maui, and we really, want to encourage residents who want specific streetlights to be reinstalled in the Wahikuli area, as well as the general Lahaina area, to submit your request direct to the County of Maui Connect website. I'll include it in the chat. I believe I can include that link in the chat. And these Lahaina requests are prioritized by the County of Maui, and then they can be sent to Hawaiian Electric for installation and re-energization of those streetlights in specific Lahaina areas.
So thank you, Shana. So we had a few questions that were SMA related. I'm not sure if Anna can help with some of these questions that, again, were pre-submitted. 2 in particular were regarding swimming pools in the SMA. So actually, I'm not sure if they're the same answer. So I'm going to just read both of them off, and Anna, if you can answer accordingly. So the first question we got was regarding Puamana. It says, in accordance with a special SMA permit, Puamana is getting ready to make substantial upgrades in and around the pool that sits right on the ocean. Currently, this ocean pool is not accessible. Would the excuse me, would the addition of a ramp or chairlift and chairlift be allowed with the kind of permit currently being issued by, in the SMA to allow Puamana to comply with 2010 ADA standards for the ocean pool improvement project? And the other question came in about SMA and pools was, can you assure the homeowners that cosmetic upgrades to our pool are allowed under the fire repair permit program that the county planning department is offering? Our property has a pool in the SMA area, and there is nothing wrong with it functionality wise. However, it needs a cosmetic makeover. Our homeowners group is planning on extensive upgrades and renovations, and we are worried that we may face fines or punishment if fixing up the decking is not covered by this special repair permit.
Thank you, Stephanie. My name is Anna Lillis with the Planning Department. So in regards to these two questions, it seems to be some conflicting information, just that it is just a cosmetic makeover, but that they are planning upgrades and extensive upgrades and repair or renovations, it sounds like. So we just want to touch base with Puamana to get more information before making a final determination. And this also is in regards to their other question that they pre-submitted in regards to their zoning. We are finalizing some research for Puamana that we anticipate having done by the end of the month, and we will be reaching out to them for a one-on-one meeting to make sure that they're getting the best and most accurate information. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anna. Okay, and another pre-submitted question regarding utilities. We have, the question was, when will utilities, i.e. water, sewer, electricity be restored in the Lahaina business district, namely Front Street? And they also recommended having a map of each utility available on the website, which would be very helpful. I will note that we do have a water map for water and a map for sewer available on Maui Recovers right now, so you can see when those are restored. But kind of going back to the original question about being restored in the business district, maybe Front, being on Front Street. I'll start off with Kimo if he wants to address the water.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so all the water in the business district is restored. You may not have water to a specific property because we may need to replace a service lateral. But as you get closer to start rebuilding, you can let us know and we can replace the service lateral.
All right, thanks, Kimo. And that information on how to request that is on Maui Recovers /water if you want to go ahead and request that. We'll go to Bob for sewer. Is Bob still on?
The current estimate to have we have a contract for all the sewer repairs, and the current estimate, it's not a hard date, but roughly a month from now, the entire system should be recovered. And as you mentioned, we do have the map that's live on Maui Recovers that as soon as your parcel turns green, you'll know it's good to flow sewer again.
Awesome, thanks, Bob. And Shayna, I'm not sure if you have a map or anything like that on your site, on the HECO site, or but also an estimate on Front Street, or?
Sure, it really starts with that service request. So if you are, we recommend working with a licensed electrical contractor. And so if you have your plans and you're ready to submit that along with the proper permitting, it starts with that electrical service request, and then we'll know that you're wanting to have either temporary or permanent service set up. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Shayna. All right, and let me go to some of the questions that have been submitted during this webinar. This one is for Luke Myers. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through the question as we go here. This is from Tamara, Councilmember Tamara Paulton. Where are we on GET exemption for 201H rebuilds?
Yes, Councilmember, I did get that request and I forwarded it over to HHFDC and they are reviewing it. So as soon as we get a response back, I will share.
Awesome, thanks, Luke. And this is for John and Aaron. Would you be able, or maybe possibly Anna, can you define during the presentation we mentioned like for like for the SMA exemption? What can you define what that is?
Yeah, I would defer to Anna on the technical response for like.
Okay.
Sure thing. Thank you. So I am thinking that is trying to refer to the different exemption classes for the environmental assessment purposes. So exemption class 2 for developments that might trigger an EA as part of use of a historic property, so National Historic Landmark District in Lahaina. I can link this to the exemption class 2, but it is important to note that the proclamation does go beyond like for like. So, but in terms of things that would be like for like, the exemption class 2 EA category applies. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anna. This is a question. It's not really a question. It was more of a clarification. I think we want to make sure we clarify. For Luke, there was a request to remind people that those in the FEMA direct lease program, that if they withdraw voluntarily from that program because they cannot pay rent come March 1st, that they will not be eligible for HIP and also GEM housing. Is first of all, if you could confirm that or clarify that, because there is a lot of this post attendee just says there's a lot of confusion, misunderstanding around that.
No, it's a good question. In the HIP program, we have a policy that if you're receiving federal assistance or FEMA assistance, you won't be eligible for the HIP program. So we understand that with rent going to be charged by the federal family starting March 1st, they do have a number of notification processes and appeal process. We would ask those survivors to work with the federal family on that option. They could always submit a late application to the HIP program, but our current policy, if they are receiving a federal benefit, they would be ineligible.
Okay. So if they were to voluntarily withdraw, are they still eligible, at least to apply for HIP?
The current policy is that they would be ineligible. Okay. We have had a number of cases that we are reviewing, and I do want to tell the survivors out there that when these cases have arisen, we've actually worked very closely with the federal family to look at those cases and to see what kind of unmet needs, whether it's disaster housing or others, that could be met with assistance.
All right, thank you, Luke. Let's see. This is a question for Anna, I believe Anna. Will lawful structures Malka of Front Street, but within the shoreline area, be allowed to rebuild?
Thank you very much. I will drop the link to the shoreline map viewer that is available on the Maui Recovers website. But if you are Malka of Front Street and within the erosion hazard line, you are able to proceed with a building permit. So I will drop that link. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me see here. I'm not sure who can address this question. I think for that, I kind of just say, hey, John, do you know who can address this question? This is also from Tamara. Who can address stagnant waters in burn zone, pools, retention basin mosquito issue?
That's a good question. Nancy, does the Department of Health have anything on that?
Hey, yeah, this is Nancy. Yeah, we do have the vector control branch. I know in the past that they've been called out. I will, if I can, refer that question to our branch manager for that and the division administrator for that to get a detailed answer.
Thanks, Nancy. Sorry to put you on the spot. So I think,
No worries.
yeah, it is considered a vector control issue. But we'll work closely with Nancy and Department of Health to get more clarity on that one. Thanks for the question, Tamara.
All right, and this is another question. Let's see, this has to do with unpermitted structures. Is the county going to do anything about unpermitted living structures and trailers, et cetera, that are springing up on cleared lots?
I don't want to speak for planning or public works, Anna can, but
Yes.
we've checked in with both departments, and I'll let you speak on that one. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will also drop the link to the See-Click Fix website. So if you see something that you believe could be a violation of the county code, please submit a See-Click Fix. And you can also find it by typing in See-Click Fix Maui County into Google or your general search drive, and it should pop up. So I will drop that link shortly. Thank you.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, Anna. That tool has always been available. It's been around for a few years now. I think it's maybe underutilized by the public. So I think now that everybody can drive around town, if you see something, See-Click Fix it. And that gets into our system where we can push it out to the right departments. And I will note that through talking with planning and public works, that they are actively going out and working on enforcement issues for illegal structures. So I can't get into specifics of that tonight, but I know that they're both actively aware of it and working on solutions. So thank you.
So thanks, John. We also had a question, and I think this is probably going to be forwarded over to our Parks Department, although I'm not sure if John or anyone else can comment. They were wondering when can Kamehameha Iki Park be open to the public?
Yeah, we'll have to ask the Parks Department.
All right, yeah, we'll forward that over to them. And just kind of going off here, going on, let me see here.
Stephanie, there were a few infrastructure questions. I answered one of them generally, but just to piggyback on while you're looking, but just to piggyback on what Bob and Chemo said, I think it's important for everybody to understand that we spent the last year and a half putting everything back together. And what that means is your water systems throughout the entire zone work. What doesn't work is the lateral that connects to the building. So as soon as you come in for building permit, water department can hook you up. Same thing for wastewater, and they're about a month away from the entire system being available to the public. So all the work that's been done to restore the system, that's almost out. There are some roadway improvements that we've actually already completed within the burn zone. So some of our highways crews and others have gone out and fixed some of the worst sections of the road, so they're all drivable. The next phase is the improvement phase, and those are the bigger projects that are being designed and going through permitting process now. So those will come in stages over the next, not just few months, but a few years. So we'll continue to give updates on that side of the recovery, on the improvement side. So that's where we add capacity to the water system, add capacity to the wastewater system, relocate things and stuff like that. So I just, in general, that's where we are. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. This question was directed to you, though, but I think Anna can help with this question. Is regarding the erosion hazard line. When the EHL was first adopted by the county, several adjustments were made due to hardened shoreline areas. There are many areas along the burn zone that warrant a more in-depth review. In addition, the science behind has been refined since the EHLs were adopted. Can we expect an update of the EHL since they are so critical to homeowners trying to rebuild?
Thank you for the question. There is not anticipated a revised EHL line that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Anna. Let's see. This is a question for Luke regarding HIP. Does HIP pay back people who placed applications that haven't been processed yet and may not be processed by the time the program, or basically the no rent time, ends in August of this year?
No, at this time, we do not back pay those that had submitted, started an application process in HIP or have completed it. The governor has given us directive for basically a 2-year window of no rents. And so we do understand that as those in HIP enter the process, there will be a shorter window of available of no rent, and then we'll have the adjusted rents to the right of that time.
All right, thank you, Luke. This is a sewer-related question. I guess Bob will take this one. I guess this attendee is looking for a specific neighborhood. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but they want to know if you know that if when the sewer will be hooked up in the neighborhood of a Keke Place.
Yeah, I don't have specific information for any specific area, but again, I mean, it all should be finished within about a month.
Okay. All right, thanks, Bob. There's a few questions that we received over email that I wanted to also kind of hit upon regarding the seawall. Not sure who this would be directed to, but they were asking about, well, first of all, they were asking about utilities. Will they be undergrounded? Specifically, they're talking about French Street. And then also, for as far as French Street seawall goes, has it been assessed for its ability to serve for the next, like, say, 50 to 100 years?
In terms of undergrounding, we're working closely with HECO on strategic undergrounding options. I guess I'll leave it at that for now, unless they want to jump in. What was the other question?
Regarding the seawall, they're asking if the Front Street seawall has been assessed for its ability to serve for the next 50 to 100 years.
It's a good question. You know, the repairs that I guess maybe I'll answer in terms of the repairs that we're doing now. So there's a section of, if you folks remember the railing section, that's the work that we're getting ready to do right now. And that was a project that was engineered and permitted, I think, going all the way back to 2015 or 16 when that project started. So that section was assessed for its efficacy, and we've chosen to invest in maintaining it. So that goes straight back to the cross section that we showed earlier when Aaron and I presented. So I guess the answer is yes, in terms of, is it going to hold up for another 50 to 100 years? Yes.
All right, thanks. And I'm not sure if you know this, John. There was a related question that was sent in just not too long ago, saying, how is it possible that the county can repair the seawall on Front Street? Isn't it illegal to repair a seawall in Hawaii?
Oh. I know it's a controversial subject, but this section that we're working on, it was permitted through every permitting agency in the state. So then by default, that's not illegal.
Yeah. All right, thanks, John. And this is a question for, oh, sorry, was someone trying to talk? If not, I'll move on. This question is for HECO. This is from Pamela Reeder, one of our attendees. They put in for electrical restoration months ago, but they started their rebuild. They still have not received electricity yet, so now they need to use a generator. Basically, can you go over like what the timeline would be for them to get their electricity back?
I can't speak specifically to the service request, but if you can put your contact information or send it to us. The slide that you shared earlier, Stephanie, would also be a great step where you can actually directly make an appointment with a Hawaiian Electric representative to talk directly about your service request. We do have walk-ins and appointments available that you can make that give specific answers to your respective service request.
Okay. Hey, Jen, would you be able to go back to that slide? It was towards the beginning for Hawaiian Electric. There's a QR code on there, as Gina mentioned, to be able to, sorry, it may take a while. The system's a little slow as we're going through. Oh, there we go. You can scroll back up to the presentation, not the presentation, the slide, all the way towards the top. Yeah, right there. Oh, go back down a little. And the next one, there we go. Oh, go back, there we go. If we can enlarge that again. Yeah, so as Sheena was saying there, that second QR code is you can schedule an in-person appointment at the Lahaina Gateway office with HECO to go over, yeah, your specific case. Let's see. Let's see. There's
Stephanie, I wondered if I could answer the parking question real quick. Sorry, because I got to take off in just a second. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I think it actually bumped to where you couldn't see it after I typed a little response. So, hi, Kea. Thanks for the question. So the question was, have we been discussing on-street parking and access moving forward? And the answer is yes. So this does involve multiple departments. So Department of Management and Office of Recovery have been working with Public Works, MPD, Department of Transportation, who manages parking, and MEMA and Fire, just to discuss necessities for on-street parking and ingress egress. So I had these conversations back in August with a lot of the Kuhua neighbors, understanding that we're looking for 20-foot minimum right-of-way for two-way traffic for emergency vehicles. And if on-street parking is allowed, that would be an additional 8-foot requirement. So what we're looking to do now, just for awareness, folks need to kind of recognize that we're going to be signing streets that don't have that total of 28 feet. So that's the 2 travel lanes of 10 feet plus the additional 8-foot parking lane. If your street is less than 28 feet, we're going to be identifying that as no on-street parking, just for adequate ingress egress. So that's the goal. We're working with Public Works Department right now, who would be identifying and then installing that signage. Both MPD and Department of Transportation would be involved in terms of enforcement. And, you know, just so you folks know, back last year, we reached out to Senator Hashimoto, who proposed a bill, which passed and now allows us to utilize non-uniformed officers for parking enforcement. So thank you to Senator Hashimoto for that, because now we don't have to utilize police resources necessarily. And the Department of Transportation does have a program called Park Maui, which can implement enforcement activities in neighborhoods. That's all something we have to set up moving forward, but our goal is moving in the direction of not allowing for on-street parking when there is inadequate width, which we want the community to recognize then. As you're building, please be considerate of your parking needs as you're designing your home and providing for that on-site parking that you need and anticipate needing on your property if you don't have the roadway width to plan for that on-street parking. So that's, John, did you want to chime in there?
No, but I think you just gave a sneak preview of what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks at the community meeting. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for that question. So yeah, we are working on this behind the scenes, and we expect to message this quite a bit in the next few months. So, and we heard you loud and clear. Those were at the last community meeting, that parking is a big issue. So what Aaron just described is our systematic approach to fix that issue. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, John and Aaron. this is, I think, a clarification to a question that was answered, I think, through the Q&A box. For Anna, regarding rebuilding to footprint, can you clarify if the footprint is defined as the permeable space? If that makes any sense. Sorry. Oh.
I think that's a question that we can come back to. That's
Okay.
a really technical question.
Okay.
Yes.
Like a plan.
But
Yeah.
that could be an acceptable interpretation. It's hard to answer that kind of question without seeing the permit plans. Thank you.
Okay. Great. And this might actually go back to the NEMA presentation for that phone number. You might have to pull that up. But there was a question about what is being done about the homeless camping out on vacant lots or homes in the process of being built. We've come across this problem on multiple vacant lots. And please correct me if I'm incorrect here, but I believe Kono kind of talked about trespassing, and you can report trespassing to the Maui Police non-emergency line, 808-244-6400. Right there, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct, Stephanie.
All right.
Yeah, please report those so that we can get some law enforcement out there to address it.
All right, thanks, Kono. There was another question that I believe was emailed in regarding King Hall Road off of Keawe Street. They note that it's continuously being used for construction traffic and residents of the Kilohana site. The result is an enormous amount of dust in and around the homes at section LC4 that align this King Hall Road that they're trying to move back to. We informed USACE and the DHS office that the King Hall Road is not to be used for construction traffic and residents. And there is an ingress egress route, Fleming and Wahikuli Road, and an upper access road off the bypass. They're asking, can the gate at Keawe Street be taken down, or be put back into place? I believe the one that was taken down by Goodfellows to be they want the gate to be reinstalled. Is that a possibility? Is there discussions about that? And I apologize for the stiltedness. I'm trying to read the comment as best I can.
Stephanie, we'll have to follow up with I guess all of our partners on that one, because there's a number of people to reach out to on that particular issue. But we can do that on behalf of the community and come back with a response. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, this is another question about access. Looks like this question is, we were told that the gate on, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Kawaula Road and Front Street has to remain closed. It was unlocked but closed prior to the fire. We opened it the day of the fire on our own, and many evacuated that way. The Shark Pit neighborhood is very concerned about theft, and we'd like the gate closed due to high incidence of theft. The only people currently living there is closer to the Shaw Street exit. So I guess that's a question, but request.
Yeah, we can put that request in as well. I don't see an issue with closing that one, but we'll double check on that. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Oh, and we are, looks like we're almost at 7. So I want to thank you. I think we got through a lot of questions. Thank you so much for everyone who was able to join us tonight. Again, just as a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be posted on Maui Recovers tomorrow. Again, please give us a little time to get that up on the website. So check back maybe around midday, afternoon. It should be up there along with slides. Again, apologize, I know a lot of the slides had very small writing on them, but you'll be able to see the slide and kind of zoom in a little as you need to, and get a lot of the information that way tomorrow. And again, as a reminder, check back with us in a couple of weeks. We'll have the in-person meeting over at Lahaina Intermediate on March 5th. So everyone take care, have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you on March 5th. Thank you.